and welcome to Coffee with Councillors. This is the show where you get to meet the great and the good of South Norfolk and Broadland District Councils. And today we are joined by Broadland District Councils leader Sue Holland. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome
nice
to the
be
couch.
here.
So let's start with the most important question. How do you take your coffee?
Well, I generally have a cappuccino if I'm out. And they regularly ask me if I'd like the chocolate bit on the top, and I go yes, of course, because otherwise I wouldn't have a cappuccino. But at home, I like to buy coffee beans and grind them up, and I've got a very, very old percolator that was given to me as a wedding present nearly 40 years ago, and it still works, and I still use it.
Perfect. Old things were built to last.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, let's start on your journey as a councillor. Tell us a little bit about what you started.
First job after school was in banking, which I got purely because it was a friend of my mother's who was the bank manager and he needed somebody, so she volunteered me and I said okay. But it was really boring, I'm afraid. I hate to say that, but it was boring. So ultimately I decided to go back and do A-levels and go to university and did history of landscape archaeology, which was much more exciting. And then after that I taught at the university for a little while, in staff development, and then decided I quite liked teaching after all because my mother was a teacher and my grandmother was a teacher. So I decided to go back into teaching with them, and that's where I ended up.
So were you teaching locally? What sort of grade did you teach?
I taught high school. Everybody went, no, you don't have to go to high school. But I have to say, people have a very bad idea about teenagers. They are generally lovely. And I did enjoy teaching. The bits I didn't like were all the admin, to be perfectly honest. The kids were great, but the admin was terrible. So they used to give us paperwork, a lot of paper. I became head of department eventually, and I just used to get so much paper. And my final year, I decided to take early retirement. I wasn't terribly well at the time, but my final year, I thought, I'm not going to do anything with this unless somebody asks me for it. And at the end of the year, I had a tray with paper in it like that. So I thought, because it just takes all your time.
So you thought I better hand it in? Or did you keep it?
So I just went, anybody want this?
Did anyone want it?
No. Most of them forgotten what they'd given me anyway. I did do a bit of supply after that, and so I've taught in quite a lot of the schools around Norwich. If you do supply, you sort of go in and out really fast.
Yeah.
So you don't really get to know anybody, and they don't. Quite often, you don't get given registers or anything. You just turn up and you're given a pile of stuff, and you just have. It's really exciting because you have to try and make it interesting for children, teenagers especially, and you also have to be very robust if you're going to be a supply teacher in a high school, because it can be very dodgy.
And I guess it gives you a lot of different subjects to kind of get your teeth into.
Yeah, everything. Biology, a bit of chemistry, you name it. English, art, anything. Oh, well, PE. Sometimes I get to do PE, which I quite enjoyed. So
I guess that's a little bit like local government then. There's so many different pots to dip in.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your journey into local government then. So after you took early retirement, you were saying that your husband told you to...
Yes. He just thought I might like to go and bend somebody else's ear for a change. I think perhaps I was just giving him too much information. He suggested I might like to come along to an event that the district council were running at the time, trying to attract people to be district councillors. And at that point I thought, I think this is a bit higher level than I really wanted to go into, so I think I'll start with the parish council. And so I went to the parish council and sure enough got very involved and very excited and ended up as chair, and then thought, well, actually I might find the district council quite interesting, so I did stand and here I am.
And how long was that journey then? So how often?
Well, that was 20... I can't remember. Isn't that terrible? Well, 2015, I think it was, when I first came on the parish council, yeah. So
oh, brilliant.
8 years ago.
So what was your motivation really when you joined the parish council?
I just think sometimes people don't realise what you can achieve if people work together.
Mm-hmm.
And my mum had been a parish councillor and my dad, and they'd always been into those sorts of community things. They would always get involved in something. My dad built a new bowls club for the green and everything for the local village. So they were just always those sorts of people, and I thought that would be nice to be able to carry on doing those sorts of things. So that's what I did, really.
So do you have any highlights really from that time as in parish council then?
I think it was quite difficult because we struggled to get we're still working on some of the things that we're trying to get for the village. So things like it's a piece of amenity land that was supposed to have been handed over several years ago is just about to come to fruition. So people don't understand, I think that's the hardest bit, is people don't understand how long it can take for things. And often it's not the council's fault, it's not the councillor's fault. It's the processes you have to go through sometimes. And it's also negotiating with other parties that everybody wants it done tomorrow, but it's quite a long process. And I think that for me is the thing that people don't necessarily understand about how councils work and how government works and how just generally operating things in the wider sphere works. You have to make sure you've got everything right and you work with other people to get those things right, and then you do it. You can't just go rushing off and put something there, because that won't work in the end anyway.
So part of the reason why you have joined district then is because you want to kind of speed up those processes?
I want to be a part of those processes, I think, and also get more understanding, because I think sometimes that's the other thing, is you can sit at one council or one meeting and you think you know what you're talking about, and then it becomes apparent by talking to somebody else that actually you've missed a vital part that you had no idea was there at all. So you suddenly realise there's much more that you need to take on board, and it is a huge learning curve for people, and I completely understand why some people just go, well, I'm not doing that. But it is worth it in the end, I think. But it's about being open and listening, but also being aware sometimes that you don't know everything. You know, you have to ask other people as well.
So let's talk about your journey then for the last few months you've been here. So how has it been since you joined us in May?
A whirlwind, really. It's interesting, exciting. I'm still getting to grips with all of it. I know that sounds awful, doesn't it? We're 6 weeks in and I'm still thinking, have I read that? Have I done that properly? But that's, one of those key things. And the other thing is to be able to work with other groups and a wider range of people. And I'm hoping that we'll all sort of work together to get the right things that we need. That's my motivation.
And do you feel like that is actually happening at the moment? All the other groups
Yes, I do. I think it's starting to happen. I think the bottom line is we all want the same things, and it's just sometimes we disagree about how to get there. So it's about persuading each other, and it's about working together and getting those things in process. Because we do, generally speaking, want the same things. We want everything for our community to be the things that it needs to be. And I don't think there's anybody who's a councillor who wouldn't agree with that.
Fantastic. And let's finally end on some of your priorities. What would you really like to see? What would you really like to make a change to?
The biggest thing, and I think this is agreed between all of us really, is housing. I think there's a huge problem with not having the right sort of houses for everybody to be able to live in. I think particularly in rural areas, I worry about young people who don't want to leave their homes, they don't want to leave their area, they want to stay, but they haven't got anywhere to stay in. And so they have to move away. I mean, everybody's always going to want to move and move around, but we've got a young man who's just come on our parish council, he's the same age as my son. He moved away, he went away to university, he went away and did a job, he's come back, his parents live there, his family live there, he's passionate about the village and his home. And I think that's absolutely lovely, and that's what I'd like to see everybody feel like, and feel that they've got the opportunity to do things as well. Because I think that's often the case, is people don't realise the opportunities are there, they're hard work, and they're not always rewarding, or they don't feel like it at the time, but the end result can be absolutely fantastic. I'm Sue Holland, and this has been Coffee with Councillors.